There was probably a time when bedtime didn't mean anything. You got tired. You went to bed. And sleep was just sleep. But somewhere along the way, bedtime became this problem. A negotiation, a test. And now, as the evening gets closer, you can already feel it. Not necessarily fear, not anxiety. Just that familiar feeling. The one that says, how is tonight going to go? And what makes it so exhausting isn't that you're awake right now. It's that part of you is already bracing for something that hasn't even happened yet. Before your head even touches the pillow, before you look at the clock, before a single sleepless minute has even passed, the night already feels heavy. If that's where you are tonight, I want you to know something. For the next little while, there's nowhere to get to, nothing to solve, nothing to force. You don't have to figure out how tonight is going to go. You can just be here with me. Because after enough difficult nights, something very subtle starts to happen. The night itself doesn't change. The bed doesn't change. The clock doesn't change. But your relationship with them does. You start walking into the night carrying memories. Memories of lying awake. Memories of trying harder. Memories of checking the time. Memories of hoping tonight will be different. And eventually, your mind stops approaching bedtime as something unknown. And it starts approaching it as something familiar. Not because it knows what will happen, but because it's learned what might happen. And that's a very different experience. Because now, before your night has even started, part of you is already watching and waiting, anticipating how it's going to go for you tonight. Your mind is trying to stay one step ahead of a situation it no longer completely trusts. But the strange part is, sometimes that effort to stay ahead becomes the very thing that keeps the night alive. We'll come back to that in a minute. And maybe you've noticed this. The more important sleep becomes, the harder it is to stop thinking about it. The more tempting it becomes to check in with yourself. Am I sleepy enough yet? Am I relaxed enough? How long have I been awake? How is tonight going compared to last night? And that's what I meant before. When I said that sometimes the effort to stay ahead, one step ahead, can become the very thing that keeps the night alive. Because after enough difficult nights, it's only natural to start paying closer attention. Because you care. You want sleep. Because you want tomorrow to feel better. Because you're tired of struggling. And yet, something interesting starts to happen. The more attention we bring to sleep, the less room there is to simply rest. Because attention keeps us involved. It keeps us watching, participating. And sleep has never really been a participating experience. Notice how sleep arrives when we're no longer trying to track its arrival. And that's why the effort to stay ahead of the night can accidentally keep us connected to it. Not because the effort is wrong, but because the effort keeps the conversation going. The conversation about sleep. The conversation about tomorrow. The conversation about how the night is unfolding. But tonight, I wonder what would happen if that conversation doesn't need to be solved. If it could simply grow quieter. And maybe that's why bedtime can feel so heavy. Because it's no longer just bedtime. It feels like a question that needs an answer. How is tonight going to go? Will this be a good night or a bad night? Will I sleep? Or will I be awake again? And maybe that's one of the hardest parts. Not knowing. Not knowing whether tonight will be easy. Not knowing whether you'll fall asleep quickly. Not knowing if you'll be awake at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or staring at the ceiling, wondering why you're still awake. The mind doesn't like uncertainty, so it tries to solve it. It tries to predict the night before the night even arrives. It tries to prepare for every possibility. And for a little while, that can feel helpful, like you're doing something. Like you're getting ahead of the problem. But eventually, the predicting becomes exhausting too. Because no matter how much time you spend thinking about tonight, you still don't know how tonight is going to go. And maybe that's okay. Maybe tonight doesn't need to be decided right now. Maybe this moment can simply be this moment, not tomorrow morning, not 3 a.m., not bedtime. Just this moment. The bed beneath you. The sound of my voice. The breath moving in and out of your body. Nothing to predict. Nothing to prepare for. Nothing to figure out. Just this moment. And maybe this is where a little space begins to open up. Because if you don't have to know how tonight is going to go, then maybe you don't have to keep asking. Maybe you don't have to keep checking. Maybe you don't have to keep looking ahead. Not because those thoughts are bad. Not because you're failing when they show up. But because every time you look into the future, you leave the only place sleep has ever happened. Right here. This moment. Not tomorrow morning. Not 3 hours from now. Not the version of you that's trying to calculate how tired you'll be. Just this version of you. The one listening right now. The one breathing right now. The one who has already made it through every difficult day that came before this one. Every single one. Even the days you thought you couldn't. Even the days that felt impossible. You made it through them. And maybe that's worth remembering tonight. Because part of what makes bedtime feel so frightening is the belief that tomorrow depends entirely on what happens next. But your life has already given you evidence that you're more resilient than that. You've gotten through difficult nights before. You've gotten through tired days before. And somehow, here you are. Still moving forward. Still finding your way. So maybe tonight doesn't need to carry so much responsibility. Maybe tonight doesn't have to decide tomorrow. Maybe tonight simply be tonight. And maybe that's the invitation tonight. Not to sleep, not yet. Just to stop carrying the night for a little while, to set it down. Not forever. Not even for the whole night. Just for this moment. Because you've been carrying it. The questions. The uncertainty. The uncertainty. The anticipation. The quiet hope that tonight will be different. And the fear that it won't. And that's a lot to hold. Especially when the night hasn't even happened yet. So, for now, you don't have to solve tonight. You don't have to improve tonight. You don't have to figure out tonight. You don't even have to believe that you'll sleep. Just notice that. You don't have to believe anything. You don't have to convince yourself. You don't need to force optimism. You don't have to force calm. You don't have to force sleep. You can just be willing to let this moment be exactly what it is. A moment. Nothing more, nothing less. And maybe that's where bedtime begins to soften. Not when you're certain. Not when all the questions disappear. But when you stop demanding that this moment answer them, and maybe that's enough for tonight. not answers. Not certainty. Not a guarantee of how the night will unfold. Just a little less weight. A little less pressure. A little less responsibility. Because for so long, you've been trying to figure out the night before it even arrives. Trying to protect yourself from it. Trying to make sure it goes well. And maybe tonight, you don't have to do that. Maybe tonight can arrive on its own. Maybe bedtime can simply be bedtime, not a test. Not a negotiation. Not a question that needs an answer. Just a moment in your day. One moment. Then the next. And if thoughts about tonight appear, let them appear. If questions about sleep appear, let them appear. You don't have to chase them. Or force them to go away. But you don't have to follow them into tomorrow. You can just stay here with the sound of my voice. With the bed beneath you, supporting you. With your breath. With this moment. for the next little while. You're safe with me in this moment. Nothing to solve. Nothing to force. Nowhere to get to. Just here. Just now. And that's enough.